When Ethan once again confessed his love to Emma in English at home, I still pretended not to understand. However, he remained immersed in the dreamlike illusions of our past life, waiting for me to devote my life to him once again, letting him indulge in his platonic love with Emma. But this time, he didn't even bother to give me the promise of marriage. When I decided to leave, he hid my college acceptance letter again and even sabotaged my records, trying to trap me at home. But life had given me a second chance. This time, I was determined to become a professor, walking the path he once did, and leaving him no way forward. "Ethan, your English sounds so good," I said teasingly, feigning innocence. "What does this sentence mean?" "Your love is not like theirs. Your love is much greater. You set me free." Ethan read the English sentence aloud, his voice low and deliberate, full of emotion, before translating it into Chinese. Once, I had loved listening to him read English, but in the past, I only got the chance when he read to his children. Whenever it was just the two of us, he was always impatient with me. Emma, sitting beside him, blushed and coyly said, "How annoying. You're embarrassing me on purpose." Ethan chuckled. "You're blushing." His mother entered the room, smiling warmly as she brought a tray of neatly sliced fruit for Emma. Then, turning to me, she tossed a pile of green beans into my hands and snapped, "Why are you just standing there? Start cooking. Can't you see we have guests today?" Hearing her voice, Ethan came out of the room and told me to slice some cured meat. Emma likes our family's cured meat. My uncle brought it specially for me because he knows I like it. But Ethan only remembered Emma's likes and preferences. In our 30 years of marriage in the past life, he never once remembered what I liked. Fortunately, in this life, I hadn't married him, and I never would. Just then, the person I had been waiting for finally arrived. Mr. Carter came over, smiling brightly, before he could knock. I opened the door. He looked surprised but quickly said, "Peony, congratulations. You've been accepted to Jinhua University. You've brought such honor to the school." Jinhua University, the university I had always dreamed of attending. In the past life, I had excitedly shared the news with Ethan, only for him to convince me otherwise. "Peony," he had said, "your parents' health isn't great, and your younger siblings need help with school. Why don't you wait until I graduate and get a job? Once we get married, I'll support you." After my parents passed away, Ethan's father, as my father's former comrade, took their pension and brought me to live with their family. I had always felt indebted to them and couldn't bring myself to let them pay my tuition. Besides, in that life, my heart was entirely fixated on Ethan. "Don't worry, Ethan," I had said back then. "You go to college first. I'll take care of the family." His parents praised me for being so considerate and sensible, as if I had received the greatest reward. I foolishly thought I'd have my chance later. But after Ethan graduated, got a job, and married, he never mentioned my education again. He even complained that my night classes were disrupting his rest and hindering his progress. This time, however, I was determined to live for myself. Mr. Carter added, "The official admission letter probably won't arrive until the end of the month. I'll help you apply for a scholarship. This is a rare opportunity." That moment, Ethan's younger siblings, Jack and Lisa, burst into the yard, nearly knocking over Mr. Carter. In the past life, these two troublemakers had caused me no end of frustration. This time, I couldn't even be bothered to scold them. Their mother's sharp voice rang out from inside the house. "What are you doing? Hurry up and make dinner. Everyone's waiting to eat." I turned to Mr. Carter and said deliberately, "When the admission letter arrives at school, please hold on to it for me. I'll pick it up myself." I emphasized the word myself, and Mr. Carter seemed to understand. "Of course," he said. I let out a sigh of relief. Once I got my hands on that letter, I would completely sever my ties with Ethan's family. Inside, Ethan and Emma were still studying English together, exchanging affectionate words and gazes. Ethan's younger siblings sat nearby, watching them with admiration. When Ethan's mother saw me watching from the doorway, she snapped in her sharp, cutting voice, "What are you looking at? You don't understand what they're saying. So stop bothering them. Go light the fire and start cooking." In my past life, I had worked myself to the bone for this family and for Ethan. And in the end, what did I get? I was driven to my death by Ethan's entire family. This time, I wouldn't repeat the same mistakes. But it wasn't time to confront them openly yet. I walked to the kitchen, picked up the cleaver, and began chopping vegetables with deliberate force. The loud thuds echoed through the room. Peony, can you keep it down? You're disturbing us. Ethan's voice came from the other room. I let out a cold laugh but didn't reply. I made the simplest meal I could and carried it to the table. Ethan and Emma were already seated, with Jack and Lisa eagerly waiting for dinner to start. Ethan placed a few pieces of cured meat into Emma's bowl and said, Peony just threw something together. Eat a little to fill up for now. She's much better at this than me. I'm clumsy and terrible at these things. Emma responded with a shy smile. You'll be doing academic work in the future. There's no need for you to bother with trivial household chores. Jack and Lisa chimed in enthusiastically. Yeah, Emma and Ethan got into the same university. They're going to be big scholars someday. The whole family laughed and chatted happily, as if they were a picture of perfect harmony. Meanwhile, I was the only one who didn't belong. Quietly, I put down my chopsticks, left the table, and went back to the tiny storage room that had been turned into my bedroom. Nobody even noticed. Inside, I began packing my meager belongings. As I folded my clothes, I heard a knock at the door. Peony, are you asleep? It was Ethan's voice. What do you want? I replied flatly. Peony, did you get your acceptance letter? He asked. I didn't answer. Instead, he pushed open the door and saw the packed bag on my bed. You're leaving? What will happen to this family if you go? What about Mom and Dad? What about Jack and Lisa? He demanded. His familiar lines from the past struck me like a cruel déjà vu. I smirked coldly and said, Oh, they're not my parents, not my siblings. If you want to guilt-trip someone, why don't you ask your beloved Emma? That's ridiculous. Emma is so delicate and talented. How could she waste her time and energy on trivial household chores? Ethan exclaimed, his voice filled with emotion as if Emma were some untouchable treasure. I had thought I was numb to all this, but his words still pierced my heart. So, it's a waste for Emma to do these things? And me? Am I supposed to spend my whole life being worn down by your family's endless demands? How dare you compare yourself to Emma? He retorted, his tone full of disdain. You're just an orphan with no parents. Our family took you in, gave you a home, fed you, and even paid for your high school education. Isn't that enough? What more could you possibly want? So that's how he saw me, as someone who wasn't even worthy of comparison to Emma. Everything I had, in his eyes, was their charity, and I was supposed to be endlessly grateful, no matter how much I suffered. Well, Ethan, did your family not take my parents' pension? Or the rental income from my parents' house? Even that precious cured meat your beloved Emma is eating today came from meat tickets my uncle exchanged for me. And you ask what I want? I want to leave, far away from your family. Ethan stared at me, a mocking smile forming on his lips. You're not thinking of using this as a way to force me to marry you, are you? Let me make it clear. Peony, I will never marry you. Ethan's voice carried a poetic rhythm as he spoke. There is a kind of love, in life after life, in age after age, forever, year after year, life after life, until eternity. That sentence confirmed something chilling. Ethan had been reborn too. His habit of explaining things to me in a mix of English and Chinese was something he had only developed after becoming an associate professor in the foreign languages department. Or, more precisely, after Emma became a widow. That time, I was overwhelmed with caring for his ailing parents and our young children. Still, I squeezed in every spare moment to learn a bit of English, hoping to feel closer to him. As a professor of foreign languages, he often had opportunities to go abroad. I dreamed of accompanying him one day, longing to see the world, anywhere at all. It didn't matter if it was Cambridge, a royal palace, or a cathedral. The year he got the chance to go to England, he bought a particularly expensive-looking women's wool coat. I examined it countless times, convinced it was meant for me. I even arranged for neighbors to help care for his parents and the children, preparing myself for the possibility that he might invite me along. I went so far as to memorize numerous sonnets, hoping to surprise him with my self-taught English. I wasn't bad at it, and I imagined us sharing conversations in the language someday. But in the end, the coat ended up on Emma. They went to England together when he was promoted to associate professor. I later saw a photo of them standing outside a conference venue, both wearing matching coats and leaning slightly toward each other. Their intimacy was undeniable. When I confronted him, he brushed it off, saying, "It was just a photo with a colleague on a work trip." After that, he learned French and Spanish, leaving me further behind. He became more impatient with me, and I stopped trying to bridge the gap. It wasn't until after his death that I realized the truth. The languages he studied were not for academic pursuits, but to communicate with Emma in ways I couldn't understand. They were a tool for him to flaunt his bond with her in front of me. Subtle, romantic, and impossible for me to penetrate. My decades of effort seemed like a pitiful joke. I seemed to have loved you in numberless forms, numberless times, in life after life, in age after age, forever. I recited in perfect London accented English, then translated fluently into Chinese. I feel like I've loved you countless times, in countless ways, year after year, life after life, until eternity. Ethan froze. He hadn't expected me to understand, let alone speak with such precision. I smiled coldly. Just a few lines of English poetry. Do you think that's enough to describe your so-called great love? Or are you lying to yourself? You want me for the stability I bring to the family, but you also want Emma for her intellectual companionship. Aren't you just trying to have it all? His expression stiffened, and the disdain and impatience in his eyes deepened. Peony, what exactly are you trying to do? I told you. I want to leave. To have nothing more to do with you or your family. Isn't that what you wanted too? A lifetime of love thwarted by me? How tragic. He stood there, stunned, clearly not expecting me to speak so boldly. In our past life, I had been timid and submissive, always obeying him and enduring his demands without complaint. But this time, I refused to let him trample on my dignity again. Peony, if you leave me, leave our family, you really think you'll get into college? He sneered. That's not for you to worry about. I replied coldly. Even if I regret this later, I won't give you the chance to see it. And the same goes for you, Professor Lin. But less than 3 days later, I was forced back to the Lin household, not of my own will, but because I was summoned. Ethan's parents had somehow manipulated the situation, causing me to lose my university admission. They claimed there was an issue with my records, and I had to return home to wait for further notice. Mr. Carter told me that my acceptance letter still hadn't arrived. Neither the school nor the local post office could track it down. It became clear that someone had intervened. Perhaps Mr. Carter's husband, who was a distant relative of the Lin family, had told Ethan's parents about my acceptance. Or maybe it was Ethan himself, ever the hypocrite, using this as a way to dodge his family responsibilities and keep me trapped. Whatever the case, I waited and waited. The university's enrollment deadline came and went, but there was no resolution to the supposed issue with my records, and the acceptance letter never arrived. All my efforts, all my hard work, had brought me back to square one. No worse than square one. This was an even more dire situation than my past life. Peony, Ethan's just thinking about what's best for you, his mother said in her falsely sweet tone. What good is all that studying for a woman? Staying at home and supporting your husband is the proper path. Yes, Peony, Ethan chimed in, with that smug look on his face. It's just your fate. If you couldn't go to college, then it simply wasn't meant to be. Accept it and focus on your duties at home. I don't believe in fate, especially not the kind dictated by these two hypocrites. Ethan wore a look of triumph. I told you to stop being stubborn, but you wouldn't listen. I think you should start helping out at the cafeteria where my mom works. That way, you'll have an easy transition when you take over her job. Did he really think he could trap me this way? Ethan, you're wrong. Even if I don't go to college, I will still be 100 times better than a hypocrite like you. With those words, I left the Lin house. I didn't turn back, no matter how loudly they yelled behind me. On the road, I bumped into Emma, dressed in a brand new skirt and carrying a shiny leather handbag. She smirked at me. Oh, if it isn't Peony, the girl who got into college but couldn't even attend. Look at your shabby clothes. Even if you went to university, you'd just be wasting the spot. Better to leave it for someone who truly deserves it. I stared at her handbag, the fine Italian leather glistening in the sunlight. I recognized the brand. In my past life, Ethan had bought Emma a similar one after he'd become successful. That time, I had been haggling with vegetable vendors at the market over a few cents, while Ethan dismissed my complaints with, "What's the point of buying you nice things? You don't have anywhere to wear them. It's better to give them to someone who truly needs them." They really were two peas in a pod. A pair of toxic narcissists destined for each other. Emma noticed my gaze and her smugness deepened. "What's the matter? Didn't Ethan buy you anything? This skirt and handbag were both gifts from him. You'll never have anything like this." A cold chill ran through me, from my feet to my head. Suddenly, everything made sense. My missing acceptance letter, Ethan's unexpected windfall, Emma's new accessories. It all pointed to one disgusting truth. I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the fury boiling inside me. I wouldn't let them win. Without hesitation, I went straight to the police station and reported my stolen acceptance letter. The officers were indifferent, brushing me off with claims that cases like this were hard to investigate. They told me to go home and wait for updates. But I knew the Lin family was behind this, and I wasn't going to give up. I needed evidence to expose their treachery. I took a train to Jinhua University and found the admissions officer who had handled my application. The officer assured me that the admissions process had been handled correctly, but the students whose records had unresolved issues were not admitted. I felt as though I were sinking into a bottomless pit, but I refused to surrender. This fight wasn't over. I refused to remain trapped by the Lin family, even if I couldn't enroll this year. I would find a way to move forward. Determined, I went to the post office, knowing my acceptance letter had been sent through them. Maybe they had some clues. Thankfully, after hearing my situation, a staff member agreed to search their records. After a while, they looked at me with a strange expression. "Peony-chan, your acceptance letter was indeed sent out. The person who signed for it was Ethan Lin." Though I had suspected as much, hearing it confirmed sent a wave of fury through me. My mind buzzed as if a string had snapped. Ethan Lin. He had actually impersonated me to sign for my letter. I forced myself to remain calm and asked for a copy of the signed receipt, showing my ID to prove my claim. The staff member hesitated but eventually agreed. When I received the copy, my hands trembled as I stared at Ethan's bold, sweeping signature. My anger erupted. Without another thought, I stormed out of the post office and headed straight for the Lin house. I needed answers. "Peony, you're back." Ethan's mother greeted me at the gate. "Look how much work piled up while you were gone." I shoved past her without a word and marched into the courtyard. Ethan, Emma, and his father were sitting at the table, enjoying a meal. They all froze when they saw me. I walked straight up to Ethan and threw the receipt copy in his face. "Explain this. What do you have to say for yourself?" Ethan glanced at the paper and smirked. "Yeah, I signed for it. So what? Do you have any other proof? The enrollment deadline has passed anyway. You can't enroll now, so why not just stay home? Honestly, you're a joke, always chasing after things beyond your reach." His tone was dripping with condescension, but I knew he wasn't just mocking this life. He was talking about the past one too. I thought back to that time when I had bought a nice shirt to attend a class reunion with him, only to find out he'd already invited Emma. That same expression was on his face then, as if I were a clown performing a pathetic act. Emma stood up, carrying a plate of freshly washed apples. She smiled sweetly, though her words were razor sharp. "Peony, you really can't prove anything with this slip of paper. And your attitude toward your elders, so disrespectful. Where are your manners?" Ethan's mother chimed in, emboldened by Emma's support. "I must have been blind to think you were a good person. Look at Emma, so considerate, so talented, and such a good match for Ethan. You, on the other hand, are always causing trouble." I took a deep breath, suppressing the fury bubbling in my chest. In this life, they didn't even bother hiding their true selves. Their masks of false kindness were gone, revealing their ugly faces. They had destroyed my future, stolen my dreams, and now they wanted to compare me to Emma, rubbing salt into the wound. I didn't waste more words on them. Instead, I steeled myself with newfound resolve. I would fight back. Even if I couldn't go to college this time, I would make Ethan, his family, and Emma pay for what they had done. I sought out Mr. Carter, who was equally outraged on my behalf. He immediately contacted the university to verify my records, confirming that there had been no reported issues. Using my parents' work-related deaths as a basis, he helped me obtain an official statement explaining my situation. With this document, I would at least be eligible to retake the college entrance exams. Mr. Carter also arranged for me to repeat my senior year at school. But I knew that as long as I stayed in this county, the Lin family could still sabotage me. They would stop at nothing to ensure I lost my chance at college again. I decided to move to Jing City, not only to distance myself from the Lin family but also because it was home to Jinhua University. There, I could immerse myself in an academic atmosphere up close. But more importantly, in my previous life, Ethan Lin's first windfall had come from a publishing house located just across the street from Jinhua University. This time, I was determined to take that opportunity away from him while he was busy courting Emma. Before leaving the county, I bought some envelopes and stationery and wrote a letter of complaint to the Education Bureau, detailing my experience. I accused the Lin family and Emma of colluding to sell my university admission slot. My hands trembled as I wrote each word, pouring my anger and frustration into the letter. When I was done, I took a deep breath and dropped it into the mailbox. Despite completing this task, I didn't feel any relief, only a growing sense of anxiety. I had no idea if the letter would ever be read or if an investigation would uncover the truth. But doing something felt better than doing nothing. As expected, the publishing house was hiring translators. It was a time when a flood of foreign literature was entering the country. Since the 1977 maritime regulations, translation fees had increased significantly. After submitting a trial translation, the publishing house was impressed with my work and offered me a job. The job came with free meals, lodging, and an advance on my salary. Although it wasn't much, it was enough for me to get by. The dormitory was tiny, with peeling walls and a persistent musty smell that couldn't be aired out. But compared to the damp, sunless storage room at the Lin house, this place was a paradise. My daily routine consisted of translating from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., staring at dense blocks of English text until my eyes burned and couldn't stay open. Yet, I felt deeply satisfied. In my previous life, I had run myself ragged, spinning like a top to serve the Lin family, only to be treated worse than a dog. This time, I was finally living for myself. The publishing director was kind to me, often sharing translation tips and encouraging me to keep learning. "Peony, your English is excellent. You have real talent. Balancing work and study like this is the essence of a modern woman." I forced a bitter smile. Talent? It wasn't talent. It was desperation. In my last life, I had forced myself to learn English just to impress Ethan and have a reason to talk to him. Thinking back on it now, it was laughable. One day, I was translating a foreign novel about love. The story vividly depicted the intense and passionate romance between the main characters. I was completely engrossed until I came across a name, Charles. That name was all too familiar. In my past life, the letters exchanged between Ethan and Emma had been signed Charles and Daisy. My hands trembled as I flipped through the book. The love letters Charles wrote to Daisy were strikingly similar to those Ethan had written to Emma. So the poems that had moved countless people after Ethan's death were nothing more than plagiarized scraps pieced together from someone else's work. Disgust churned in my stomach. I had always believed Ethan's coldness toward me stemmed from his deep love for Emma, but now I saw him for what he truly was: a hypocritical, pretentious fraud. His so-called noble love was nothing more than a pathetic imitation. I swallowed my nausea and forced myself to continue translating. As Charles and Daisy's story became increasingly explicit, vivid images of Ethan and Emma's secret trysts filled my mind. My stomach turned violently, and I felt like I was going to be sick. I couldn't hold it in anymore and rushed to the bathroom, vomiting violently. When I emerged, the publishing director sighed sympathetically. "Translation work is truly exhausting. You should take care of yourself. I also heard you're preparing to retake the college entrance exams. That's not easy at all." I forced a weak smile. "I'm fine. I can handle it," I said, nodding, though my heart felt heavy with bitterness. In my previous life, Ethan Lin had destroyed my future. This time, I was determined to succeed, to get into college and reclaim my dignity. In the days that followed, I worked and studied even harder. During the day, I immersed myself in translation work. At night, I studied for the exams. I barely allowed myself any rest, fearing that if I stopped, I would think about Ethan and Emma, their betrayal, and the pain they had caused me. The memories of my tragic past life haunted me, pushing me forward relentlessly. Finally, my hard work paid off. I was accepted into Jinhua University again. Overwhelmed with joy, I nearly burst into tears. Holding that acceptance letter in my hands was more than just grasping a piece of paper. It was holding on to a new beginning, a new life. With my acceptance letter in hand, I went to the publishing house to resign. Peony, I knew you could do it, the director said, beaming with pride. You're always welcome back to continue translating. I'll even raise your pay. I smiled and nodded, but my heart was a whirlwind of emotions. The director didn't know how much that book I translated had changed my life. It had broken me, yet it also gave me the strength to rise again. Standing at the gates of Jinhua University, I watched the students walking back and forth, my heart swelling with hope and anticipation. Just then, Emma appeared, dressed in a light pink dress. The moment she saw me, her eyes reddened. Peony, she began, her voice quivering. I know you're still angry at me, but Ethan's mother is sick now. He needs you. Sick? Of course. She needed me, not as a person, but as a free caretaker. I let out a derisive laugh, not bothering to hide my disdain. Emma bit her lower lip, her eyes welling with tears as she spoke again. Peony, I know you're upset with Ethan, but his mother truly can't manage on her own right now. You know how busy Ethan is with his studies. He doesn't have the time. Couldn't you just take a break from school and come back to help for a while? So you're asking me to drop out of college to play the free maid again? I said coldly. Your family has always been so generous. Ethan's mom has always been so fond of you, always treated you so well. Wouldn't you feel better knowing she's being cared for? Emma tried to appeal to me with her usual saccharine tone. I don't feel anything of the sort. In fact, I'm worried she might be too comfortable. I shot back, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Emma, stop pretending in front of me. We both know exactly what you want. You'd love for me to stay at the Lin house, so you and Ethan can live your little fairytale life together. Her face turned ashen, her lips trembling as she opened her mouth to speak, but I had no interest in hearing her excuses. I turned to leave, only to see Ethan step out from the shadows. He caught Emma as she looked like she might collapse from her tears and turned to me, his tone accusatory. Peony, this isn't like before. This time, my mother's illness worsened because she wasn't brought to the hospital in time. You bear some responsibility for that. I froze, stunned by the sheer absurdity of his claim. In my previous life, I had stayed at the Lin house, sacrificing my dreams and youth to care for his mother. Because I was there, she had received timely treatment and never developed chronic issues. But in this life, I had left early, pursuing my own path. Without their free labor, Ethan's mother's health had declined, and now, Ethan had the audacity to blame me for it. I let out a sharp laugh, unable to contain my disbelief at his twisted logic. This only solidified my belief that leaving them was the best decision I had ever made. Beside him, Emma continued to sob pitifully. Peony, I know you're still mad at Ethan, but please, have some compassion for his mother. She truly needs you right now. Can't you just take a break from school and come back to care for her, even for a little while? Her pleas fell on deaf ears. I had no intention of stepping back into that house of nightmares. I turned to Ethan Lin, glaring at his hypocritical face as disgust surged within me. You knew your mother wasn't in good health, yet you didn't prepare in advance. And now you come to blame me. My voice was icy, each word piercing him like shards of ice. I was busy studying. Besides, my mom's always been fine, he protested, his tone defensive. Fine? Fine enough to suddenly fall gravely ill. I let out a cold laugh, tearing apart his flimsy excuse without mercy. Ethan, stop pretending. You thought I'd step in and take care of everything, didn't you? That's why you were so reckless. But you're wrong. I told you a year ago. I cut all ties with the Lin family. I owe you nothing, and even if you regret it now, I won't give you another chance. Yet, they didn't give up. Instead, They escalated their attacks. At Jinhua University, rumors spread like wildfire, painting me as an ungrateful, heartless woman who abandoned her ailing foster mother. They even plastered large posters on the school bulletin board, accusing me of being a selfish ingrate. Within days of my enrollment, I had gained an infamous reputation. Everywhere I went, people whispered and pointed. First, I thought the rumors would die down, like a passing storm, but I underestimated Ethan, Lynn, and Emma, as well as the gullibility of some students. Hate notes piled up in my dorm room. Some cursed me, saying I didn't deserve to live. Others demanded I leave Jinhua immediately. Someone poured ink on my bed, and my books were torn to shreds. The dorm supervisor, her face full of disdain, told me to move out to avoid disturbing the harmony of the dormitory. Even in the library, I could feel the hostile stares around me. The final straw came when a sophomore girl stormed up to me, her face twisted with rage. Peony-chan, how dare you use that name? You're disgusting enough to ruin your own reputation, but now you're dragging mine down with you. Someone like you doesn't deserve to stay at Jinhua. Drop out already. I nearly laughed at her audacity. I recognized her. She wasn't me. Her name was Lily Liu, the daughter of the county mayor. In my previous life, I had heard she was expelled from Jinhua for cheating. I had long suspected that my stolen acceptance letter had been sold to her. Now, here she was, boldly claiming my name and even berating me for it. Well, Lily, I said, smirking. Long time no see. What happened? Did the mayor's precious daughter forget her own name just to attend college? Her face turned ghostly pale. She opened her mouth to retort but couldn't utter a word. Defeated, she fled in embarrassment. I reported the incident to the school, laying out the facts, but the admissions office blocked my efforts yet again. Refusing to back down, I marched straight to the president's office. There, I presented the full story. How Lily Liu had taken my place. How Ethan, Lynn, and Emma had fueled the smear campaign against me. And all the evidence I had gathered. The president immediately launched an investigation. The truth came out quickly. Lily's enrollment was revoked, and she was expelled from the university. Meanwhile, Ethan and Emma received official warnings and were ordered to issue a public apology to me. I thought that would be the end of it, but it turned out to be the calm before the storm. Ethan and Emma publicly apologized, but behind the scenes, they escalated their attacks. They spread even nastier rumors, claiming I had framed Lily Liu just to secure my place at Jinhua, and that I had seduced the president to stay in school. These lies were more malicious and easier for people to believe. After all, how could a poor girl from the countryside defeat the daughter of a county mayor? How could she convince the president to personally intervene? Once again, I became a target of campus gossip. Every step I took was accompanied by scorching, judgmental stares, making it hard to breathe. Just as I was on the verge of breaking down, something unexpected happened. Ethan, Lynn, and Emma found me again, their smug expressions unshaken. We've secured a spot in the overseas exchange program, Ethan said, looking down at me with his usual air of superiority. We can't let trivial family matters get in the way of our future. It's best if you know your place. Drop out and go home to take care of my mom. But don't get any ideas. I'm not going to marry you. The mayor's family has even offered you a clerical job at a factory. You should be grateful. Ethan, I said coolly, how exactly did you get into the exchange program? Did Emma's professor lover write a recommendation letter for her? Wasn't it the Faculty of Arts at University A? Perfect. This morning, I sent them a formal complaint. An English one, detailing academic misconduct and fraud. I used a telegram to make sure it reached them promptly. Ethan's face turned pale, and Emma let out a shriek. You're insane. You actually reported us. I only stated the truth. I replied evenly. If you're innocent, there's nothing to fear. You're lying. You barely understand English, let alone write a proper complaint. How could you possibly send something overseas? Ethan snapped, though he quickly masked his anger with a condescending sneer. He even reached out to pat Emma on the head reassuringly. Believe what you want, I said, walking away without looking back. I went straight to the local newspaper office and told a reporter about Ethan signing for my acceptance letter and Lily Liu using my name to enroll in Jinhua University. The reporter was intrigued and agreed to write an in-depth story. A week later, the newspaper published my account, creating a massive public outcry. Ethan and Emma's exchange program fell through. The professor Emma had manipulated was implicated and faced an investigation by his university. Lily Lou's father, several officials in the county's education bureau, and the admissions officer at Jinhua University were all suspended pending inquiry. I heard that the Lin family's reputation was completely ruined. Ethan's mother's condition worsened, but neither Ethan nor his siblings were willing to take care of her. She was left to fend for herself, her cries echoing through the house. I hadn't expected the complaint I sent to University A to bring about an opportunity. Professor Peter Smith from the university's Faculty of Arts wrote me a personal reply. In his letter, he praised my concise and sharp writing style and expressed interest in seeing more of my work. He encouraged me to send him some samples. That letter was like a bomb, detonating a wave of excitement in my otherwise quiet life. My original intent had been to expose Ethan and Emma's disgraceful actions. I never imagined that my writing abilities would gain international recognition. I carefully stored Professor Smith's letter, my heart swelling with indescribable exhilaration. Years of being belittled by Ethan and mocked by Emma melted away in that moment. For the first time, I saw a new path before me, a path leading to freedom and dignity. The day after receiving the letter, I went to see the director at the publishing house, hoping for his guidance. After all, much of my progress in writing was thanks to his advice. The director was even more excited than I was. Be honest with the professor about your lack of experience, he advised. His work is known for its sharp, concise style. Your writing should aim for the same. And don't forget to keep improving your English. You'll need it to communicate with Professor Smith effectively. Over the next few days, I locked myself in my room, writing relentlessly, revising my drafts, and studying English. The director's standards were incredibly high. He insisted I revise each piece multiple times, scrutinizing even the smallest punctuation marks. It was grueling, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I knew this was my chance to change my life, and I was determined to seize it. A month later, I mailed my revised work to Professor Smith. Then, the waiting began. During that time, I continued translating works, studying English, and dealing with Ethan and Emma's constant harassment. Although they had lost their chance to study abroad, they hadn't given up their attempts to retaliate. They spread malicious rumors, accusing me of using underhanded tactics to gain fame. They even fabricated false charges, hoping to get me expelled from school. The attacks grew more vicious by the day, but I refused to back down. I ignored their provocations. I knew that the current rumors could no longer hurt me. Finally, Professor Smith's reply arrived. In his letter, he gave high praise for my revised work and encouraged me to apply for an exchange student program. He even expressed his willingness to wait for me to enroll. That moment, I felt that all my hard work had been worth it. I could finally break free from the shadows of Ethan, Lynn, and Emma, ready to start a new chapter of my life. With Smith's letter in hand, I went to see the publishing director. When he read the letter, a smile of satisfaction appeared on his face. "Peony, don't forget about our publishing house once you've become a literary master," he joked. Thanks to Professor Smith's handwritten invitation, I successfully secured an exchange student spot and set off for the program at the start of my sophomore year. Life as an international student was much harder than I had anticipated. The language barrier, cultural differences, and heavy coursework left me feeling overwhelmed at times. Professor Smith had extremely high standards. He could always pinpoint the flaws in my translations and was relentless in his critiques, emphasizing that I had yet to grasp the nuances of cross-cultural language adaptation. "Peony," he said one day, circling errors on my manuscript with his red pen, "your writing is very evocative, which is excellent, but it's not enough. Translation requires some subjective interpretation. Yes, but the primary goal is to convey the author's original intent. Faithfulness comes first." I understood his words, but achieving that level of precision wasn't easy. Beyond my struggles with cross-cultural understanding, many literary works triggered painful and repressed memories of my own. When comparing their narratives to my experiences, my resentment would surge uncontrollably. I hated them, Ethan and Emma, for the lies, the the betrayal, and the harm they inflicted on me. Yet, at the same time, I couldn't fully let go of them. This inner conflict consumed me. Sensing something was amiss, Professor Smith called me into his office for a serious talk. Peony, I know you're carrying a lot of emotional baggage, but you can't let it become a stumbling block on your path forward. You're a translator with incredible empathy. If your emotions feel too overwhelming, why not write them down? Look at them from a different angle. His advice gave me immense encouragement. I began exploring new ways to express my emotions. Delving into my inner world, I wrote about my childhood, my family, my love life, and all the joy and sorrow I had experienced. Gradually, my writing matured and deepened. My words grew more refined, and I even learned to inject humor into my recounting of how I taught myself foreign languages while buried under endless household chores. My first short essay was published in a local magazine abroad. The payment was meager, but the sense of accomplishment was immeasurable. With that money, I bought myself a cashmere scarf. Its soft, warm texture reminded me of Professor Smith's kind and encouraging gaze. After unburdening my heart, I found I could approach translation work with much more objectivity. Combined with the cultural studies recommended by Professor Smith, my translation skills steadily gained recognition. In the months that followed, I received invitations from several domestic and international magazines to translate for them. My first thought, of course, was to help the publishing director at Jinhua University, who had supported me from the beginning. Soon, I received a letter from him, along with a thick stack of drafts and a remittance slip for an advance payment. The note read, "Peony, let's encourage each other and keep growing." Tears nearly welled up in my eyes. In the past, I had worked like a slave for the Lin family, never hearing a single kind word in return. Now, I could finally live with dignity, relying on my own efforts, and earn the respect and recognition of others. In the years that followed, my translation work garnered numerous awards and even gained a modest reputation internationally. Professor Smith never hesitated to praise me, frequently telling others I was talented and one of the best students he had ever taught. While pursuing my master's and doctoral degrees, I voluntarily translated Chinese classical poetry without compensation, promoting traditional Chinese culture abroad. After a decade away, I received an offer to join the faculty at Jinhua University. I decided to return home, eager to share what I had learned with the next generation of students. When my plane landed at the capital airport, I took a deep breath. The air of my homeland was both familiar and strange. After so many years, I was finally back, carrying the honor and achievements I had fought so hard to earn. My uncle and aunt, who had received occasional financial support from me over the years, came to pick me up. Following my advice, they had used the money wisely. Besides sending my younger male cousin to school, they had also enrolled my two younger female cousins in textile universities. Now, both had senior professional titles and were leading comfortable lives. My aunt, who had always been a materialistic woman, had initially refused to take me in when the Lin family seized my parents' pension. She had even stopped my uncle from letting me live with them after I left the Lin family. Yet now, she clung to me as though she were a long-lost mother, her tears and laughter flowing freely. "It's been so many years. You've lost so much weight. Finally, you're back. Let's hurry home. We've prepared a big meal with all your favorite dishes." When we arrived at my uncle's house, my two younger cousins came out to greet me, calling me big sister so warmly that anyone would have thought we shared an exceptionally close bond. At the welcome feast, my aunt couldn't stop serving me food, showering me with praise, and repeatedly marveling at my accomplishments. Yet, between compliments, she subtly probed about how much money I had earned abroad and whether I had bought property. Her words were laden with calculation, but I kept my expression neutral, responding vaguely to her inquiries. After a few rounds of drinks, my aunt finally couldn't hold back anymore. "Peony," she began with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, "you've achieved so much in your career. Don't you think it's time to consider settling down? After all, a woman should have a home of her own." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She took it as encouragement and pressed on. "You know, Ethan never ended up with Emma. Over the past few years, he's been helping out at our house regularly. The Lin family, well, they weren't good to you, but if you still have feelings for Ethan, We could negotiate for a higher bride price. After all, you lived with them for so many years. Marrying someone else might not reflect well on your reputation. As she spoke, my aunt became increasingly animated, vividly recounting the Lin family's misfortunes. Ethan's parents had both become bedridden, and the three Lin siblings had fought bitterly, each trying to shirk their responsibilities. Ethan, under the pretense of attending university in the capital, had all but abandoned the family, rarely returning home. The youngest Lin daughter had been forced to drop out of high school to care for their parents. After the parents fell ill, the family's finances dried up, and their expenses skyrocketed. The Lin brother had caused trouble at school, been expelled for fighting, and subsequently disappeared without a trace. And that Emma, my aunt exclaimed, her voice dripping with disdain. That ungrateful girl. Ethan did so much for her. And what did she do? She turned around and latched onto a Hong Kong businessman and vanished without a word. Poor Ethan nearly couldn't finish his studies because of her. I nearly burst out laughing. My report had ended both their academic careers, forcing them to scramble for new ways to secure a comfortable life. For someone like Emma, latching onto a wealthy benefactor seemed inevitable. She's the kind of woman who'd do anything for money, my aunt added with a sneer, piling on more embellishments to her already dramatic tale. All they cared about was fame and fortune. In the past life, if Ethan Lin hadn't been promoted to associate professor, Emma wouldn't have stuck around with him either. I turned to my aunt and said, "If you still want us to be family, then don't push this anymore. No matter what promises you make, Ethan Lin has nothing to do with me anymore. I will never have anything to do with him again." I left my uncle's house only to run into Ethan Lin, who was delivering gifts. He was dressed in a faded, washed-out shirt, his hair unkempt, and a scruffy layer of stubble covering his chin. His entire appearance exuded exhaustion and defeat. "Peony, it's been so long," he greeted me. I stopped in my tracks, looking at him coldly without saying a word. Ethan seemed caught off guard by my reaction. He hesitated for a moment, a flicker of hurt passing through his eyes, but he quickly replaced it with a fawning smile. "Peony, I've read the works you translated. They're incredible. I was blind back then. Emma came back to see me once, but I ignored her. When she passed away a few years ago, I didn't care. These past years, I've regretted everything and waited for you. Can you give me a chance to make it up to you? My parents are gone. My brother disappeared. And my sister is married now. If you marry me, you won't have to take care of anyone else. I promise I'll treat you well." I looked at his pathetic appearance and felt no emotion, no anger, no pity, nothing. If anything, I found it amusing. He was still the same as ever, trying to disguise his selfishness with a facade of sincerity. "Let me guess," I said, my voice sharp. "I hear the school offers jobs to the spouses of invited professors. Is that why you're really here?" Ethan's expression faltered, the truth hitting him like a blow. He looked pained, as if I'd struck a nerve, but he couldn't deny it. "Peony, I know I wronged you in the past, but things are different now. I really need this job," he admitted. Then, after a pause, he added, "But I also genuinely want to make it up to you. Let's start over." "Okay." I stared at him, a profound sense of sadness washing over me. After 2 lifetimes, he hadn't changed at all. He always put himself first, always portrayed himself as a victim. He needed me to care for his ailing parents, to support him through school, to manage his household, and even to accommodate his so-called love for Emma. Now, he needed me to secure a job for him. "Your idea of making it up is to have me continue sacrificing for you?" I asked, my voice calm but cutting. "Ethan Lin, whatever we had ended a long time ago. Remember what you said? Even if you regretted it, I wouldn't give you another chance. You'll live your hard life, and I'll live my good one. Let's pretend we never knew each other." With that, I turned and walked away, not sparing him another glance. He never came looking for me again. I heard later that he fell seriously ill and couldn't even work as a tutor anymore. But it had nothing to do with me. Standing on the university podium, I looked out at the sea of young faces in the lecture hall. My heart swelled with emotion. These students, just like I once was, were full of dreams for the future. I believed that knowledge could take them further than they ever imagined. I was willing to be their wings, just as so many mentors had been mine.